It's 7:45 in the morning, and the skies look a little threatening. So I think the head out this morning is going to call for some rain gear. All my tools and stuff for a flat tire. This one here's got some clothes in it. Brought a thermarest and a sleeping bag just in case where I'm going. I gotta sleep on the living room floor at my sister's place. This doesn't look waterproof, but everything that's in it is in Ziplocs, so that should be okay. And yeah, it's time to get this show on the road, and we'll carry on from there.
Here I am heading out towards McBride. It's about 208 kilometers away. Sometimes I feel like I have a 208 kilometer long driveway. Quite often heading east or even to Kamloops. The first bit of the ride is from here to McBride. So I've ridden this on this road many times and driven it a whole lot more. You do get closer to the mountains eventually. The beginning of it is fairly boring with nothing but trees and moose and deer and bears to keep you occupied. But as you can see, the mountains finally come into view, and there's some snow in those hills right now, which is June. It's not too unexpected. The weather this morning wasn't terribly warm, and I see I picked up a bug for a hitchhiker on the camera, but there seemed to be a whole bunch of bugs out this morning, and every time I stop and clear my lens, I seem to get a couple more, and slowly getting closer to the mountains. And the temperature this morning hasn't been overly warm. Hasn't really rained yet, so that's good. And here we're going along the Fraser River. This river goes from here all the way to Vancouver, to a very long ways away. Not exactly sure how many miles long that river is, but she's a long one. And then slowly we're going to try and hopefully get a view of Mount Robson today. But the way the clouds are looking, I really wouldn't want to hold my breath. It appears that the top of Mount Robson is going to play peekaboo in the clouds, which is quite common. I think all the times I've been through here, I think maybe I've seen the complete Mount Robson maybe 4 times in total. But it sure is pretty when you can see it all. I did a little checking. Turns out the Fraser River is actually 850 miles long. That's an awful lot of water. It goes a long ways. Coming up to this little lake here that I really wouldn't mind someday stopping and throwing a fly or two in just to see what we got for fish in there. I'm sure they would be putting up a pretty good fight, seeing the water is so cold, glacier fed. But there'd be pretty nice fish in there. One of these days I'm going to have to do that. They do have a nice pull out here where a person can pull in and take a break and just kind of enjoy the view. The lake's not very rough today, and it certainly is pretty with the green water from the glacier being fed that way. Well, getting closer to Jasper Park, and I can see that the clouds are definitely hanging down really low in the mountains. Certainly getting into a lot of traffic all of a sudden. It kind of makes me think that maybe there's some construction ahead. Of course, up here we have, our 2 seasons. We have winter, and then we have construction. So it certainly wouldn't surprise me to run into some. These highways always need a little bit of work after the winter. But so far it hasn't rained on me yet. I'm sure it probably will sometime along the way. Just the way these clouds are looking, I cannot see me escaping that water for that long. Clouds are pretty heavy today. But you never know. Might get lucky. But we'll see what happens. I'm certainly getting close to Jasper. I don't know if I'll stop in at Jasper or not. I may just whistle right on through. And here's the entrance to the park. Stop there for a quick break. Well, riding through Jasper Park, I can definitely see the clouds are just hanging low on the mountains. And so far, I've only had a few raindrops. A couple of them hit the camera lens, and plus an odd bug or two that likes to hitchhike. And once again, we come along a really nice body of water, the beautiful color. You can see it's not very windy out because there's not much in the way of waves on it. Another nice place to maybe toss in a fly and see if a guy could talk to a couple of fish. But so far the ride's been pretty good for considering how cloudy it looks. I've been really lucky to have missed out on a lot of rain so far. Haven't had any. Gotta like it. Well, I'm out of the mountains now, past Jasper, and starting to head closer to Saskatoon. And the sky is sure getting a lot bluer. Gotta like that. So the wind's come up a little wee bit, but nothing too terrible. And so far things are looking pretty good. And I didn't really take a lot of video of my stop in Saskatoon. I carried on to a place called Bigger, Saskatchewan. That's kind of where I grew up. And they used to have a sign here at one time that said, New York is big, but this is bigger. So definitely somebody on the council had a sense of humor back in those days. I could not find that sign, even though I kind of rode around. I didn't take a lot of video of riding through the town, because there's not really a lot there that would probably interest anybody else. But this is kind of where I spent a lot of youth playing sports and chasing gophers and having fun in the prairies. Now, just riding through the town of Bigger. Yeah, when I grew up here, my dad was a locomotive engineer for the Canadian National Railway. And during the summer when school was out, I spent a lot of time riding up in the locomotive with my dad, heading up into the run to northern Manitoba. I'm sure it was an envy of a lot of kids. I got to sit up and ride in the locomotive and blow the horn once in a while as we got to crossings. And it was a lot of fun, I got to admit. And sleep in the bunkhouse, and turn around and come back home the next day. I spent a lot of time doing that. It was very fond memories. And actually here I just came along through town a little bit and found a gas station. Had to stop and get some fuel for the bike and a little bit of fuel for me. And talking to one of the fellows in the gas station, I told him where I was going, and he told me to avoid taking one highway. He said on that particular highway they had potholes big enough to swallow a pickup in. So it was kind of nice to have local knowledge to know which road to take. And it was kind of saved some grief that way. Turned out the road I took was pretty nice. This picture was taken, I believe, in 1972, way back on my first trip to Saskatchewan on one of my first motorcycles, the Yamaha 750 I owned. That was back when I actually had hair. I had to stop and take a picture of the prairies and just kind of remember way back in those days. Traveled a little bit lighter in those days as well. And then the current picture of my trip to Saskatchewan, if you notice, kind of the hair is a whole lot thinner. Well, maybe a whole lot gone. And the jacket I was wearing in the first picture no longer fit for some reason. I think it shrunk, so I had to buy another one. So sort of a same type of picture taken many, many, many years apart. Kind of interesting now to look back on those days. One thing about riding through the prairies, you can tell when you're coming close to a town, because those grain elevators stand up like a skyscraper against the prairie sky. They sure stand out. Trouble is, you'll see one a long ways away and think you're really, really close. Sometimes it's a lot further away than you think. It's kind of interesting that way. And also, if everybody thinks that the roads there are perfectly flat, well, here there were some really nice rolling hills and some really nice sweeping bends. The road was actually a lot of fun to ride. It up and down and in and around these big sweepers. It was kind of fun. And also the sky was really nice and blue, so there wasn't any rain, and that made it even nicer. And on top of that, the wind had died down. So actually, the fact it had warmed right up and turned out to be a really nice day for a ride. And I really did enjoy some of these fairly high-speed sweepers. Of course, you do have to watch out for the boys with the bubblegum machines on the roof of their car, because you don't really want to be talking to the nice man with the yellow stripe on his leg. So I kind of did have to watch it, because they could be sitting on one of these side roads. You'd never know it till it was too late. So I had to kind of take it easy a little bit, but the road was certainly entertaining and very, very pleasant. It was a really nice ride. As I got closer to Red Deer, I noticed that the clouds were starting to gather a little bit and starting to look a little bit threatening. which wasn't too surprising, but so far I'd managed to avoid the rain, so I really couldn't complain at all. So the ride had been good, so far the road had been great, and then you get on the freeway and once again the sky is cleared, so I really didn't have any complaints. Traffic was fairly light heading into Red Deer, so that was a good thing, and the sky was blue, so what more could a guy ask for? As I got closer to Rocky Mountain House, I noticed that the clouds were starting to get a little bit darker and starting to look like they actually meant business. I noticed off to my left it was raining pretty good over there, and then I was really hoping the road had turned to the right, which thankfully for the most part it did. So far in this particular stretch I'd managed to kind of miss the rain, which was good with me. But I could see that there was definitely some more dark clouds on the horizon, and with my luck, eventually I know I'm going to be turning into some big black mass somewhere. And as I carried on, I actually hit a spot where, it had already rained there. I thought, well, that was good, because rain had already passed through, and maybe once again I was going to miss it. And once again, I picked up a hitchhiker bug on the camera. They just seem to be a real pain, and I keep stopping to clean the camera and go a few more miles, and lo and behold, pick up another one. But so far coming into Rocky Mountain House, I'd missed it, man. Looking off to the left, there was a big black ugly over there too, and I thought, well, I'm sure I'm probably going to have to turn into that one pretty soon, and we'll just have to carry on and see how it works. But lo and behold, I was fairly lucky. Rain had already passed through, and I got into Rocky Mountain House without really running into a whole lot of it. Definitely was a little bit of a shower I hit, but nothing to really make me even want to stop and put my rain gear on. So I stopped there overnight, and I stopped at a really nice hotel here, and they let me park the bike right out front so that they could keep an eye on it overnight. And I got some of the nicest shrimp I've ever had there. It was really, really good. And it was an enjoyable stop overnight in a nice hotel. I recommend it. When I left Rocky Mountain House, a fellow told me just to kind of go to the light and turn left and then take the next left, which I did. And that put me right on this freshly made gravel road. I was kind of surprised because I figured the road should have been paved, but no big deal. But it was obviously a fresh road. Looked like it had a complete rebuild. It had about, 2 inches of fresh gravel on it. That was really nicely graded smooth and really no bumps in it. So I thought, I wonder how long this is going to go on. So all I could do was really just carry on. Of course, I had to slow down a little wee bit. Loaded FJR is not overly happy on a gravel road, but no big deal. But it was a little bit of a surprise. Turned out I'd actually taken the wrong turn, because as I came up to a corner up here, all of a sudden, there's the highway. So I guess it was, I don't know whether it was built as a cutoff road or whether it was going to be some more construction built on the side of it, or just what was going on there. But it was obviously a new road. I don't think it had been there that long, because it certainly had all the makings of a brand new one. And turned out it was okay. So when I came out here, I didn't see any traffic on it to speak of either. I guess I could have probably carried on the gravel road, but I thought, well, we'll just hit on the highway here and head her towards Saskatchewan River Crossing and go from there. Well, it was certainly nice to turn back towards the mountains again. I know I grew up on the prairies, but after moving to British Columbia, I find that when I get away from the mountains, I sure do miss them. So it was kind of nice to head back this way again. And my next stop was going to be Saskatchewan River Crossing. Stop and get some gas there and something to eat. And then I would be on the Icefield Parkway, and that is a beautiful piece of road. And I was really hoping that it would be a little bit sunny to be able to see the mountains. And this road had its own. I've never been on it before, and it had some very beautiful pieces as well. This is coming up along Abraham Lake here, and it is an absolutely gorgeous place to stop and have a good look. It would have been really, really nice had the sun been shining on the water, because the water is certainly must be glacier fed again, because it certainly is a different color, and a very, very different blue color. So of course I had to come along and had to pull in and stop and take a look around and take some pictures. Who wouldn't? That was a place that the person had a drone. That would be a nice place to toss a drone up in the air and get a really nice overview of the entire lake. Of course, I didn't have one of those, so all I could do was just stop and have a good gander around. And it certainly has a beautiful spot. I wonder, again, what kind of fish are in that lake, because I bet that, again, it's a very, very cold lake. I don't think I'd necessarily really want to go swimming there, but it certainly is pretty. And I imagine a lot of that water here is flows out of the mountains, so it definitely wouldn't be, I don't know if it would be a really good lake for swimming or not, but certainly is a good lake to just stop and have a really good look around. Now the ride from here to Saskatchewan River Crossing, it was just a case of sit back and really kind of enjoy the views and enjoy looking at the mountains. It did clear up a little bit, so the clouds weren't hanging right over top of the peaks, so you could see them a little bit, so that was kind of nice. And it is really a nice piece of highway. Sun kind of came out a little bit. I gotta like that. And temperature came up, which was also kind of nice. Obviously, coming through here, there had been a forest fire at some time. And one side of the road is burnt, and the other side really isn't. It's funny how forest fires act. But you can see the clouds are definitely kind of high-centered on the hills here. Kind of interesting. Saskatchewan River Crossing, getting fuel, stopped, and yes, it is raining. What else is new? After leaving Saskatchewan River Crossing, I'm now on the Icefield Parkway. And this is one of the most beautiful highways in Canada, I believe. I mean, I haven't been on all the highways in Canada, but this one certainly got to come very close first. And a lot of people come from long distances away to drive this highway. And if you're on a bike, you really owe it to yourself to come here and ride it, especially when it's warm and sunny, which today it wasn't. However, that was still a beautiful ride. You up and down through the mountains, and a lot of elevation changes, and of course a lot of corners coming through the mountains. And yes, it is in a park, so you do, especially midsummer, you will tend to get a fair amount of traffic. This was in June, so the traffic wasn't terribly heavy, but it was still a fair amount. And here there's somebody on a bicycle. I gotta admire this person. They got a GoPro on their helmet taking some pictures. It must take some tremendous leg strength to be able to pedal through these mountains, because there's an awful lot of pretty steep climbs and long climbs. It's just not a little short hill. It's a long uphill grade for many, many miles. And coming through here, like I said, you come into the traffic. You have some really beautiful views here. And I got up behind some slower moving cars, and I guess they were busy looking around, and because here is a really, really nice viewpoint. I didn't stop, but I should have maybe. But I passed him on a double solid line. He wasn't going very fast, and of course the bike can make pretty short notice of traffic, so it didn't take long to get by him. But as I came up around this corner here, I was quite surprised to look over and see how low the snow was still. I was worried that with the temperature being what it was, that if it dropped much more, I was maybe going to be seeing some snow right on the road. Thankfully I didn't, but the snow was pretty darn close to the highway. And it was, like I said, it was pretty cold, but certainly doable. And it just makes you kind of wonder just when it's going to finally warm up. And here I am approaching the Athabasca Glacier. I guess that's what this highway is named after, Icefield Parkway, and there's an ice field. It's a huge glacier. You can actually get a bus ride on it if you if you wish. Of course, I didn't. Way back when, about 1969 or 68, my family came out here, and the glacier was actually almost at the highway. And it goes to show how far, like a lot of the other glaciers all over the world, how far that has receded. And it actually, as you walk up there, there's markers from the different years as to show exactly where the glacier was and how far it receded in a 5 or a 10-year period. It is kind of an interesting walk. I didn't do it. The temperature was all of 7 degrees when I stopped, and there was a bit of a breeze blowing, typical in the mountains, so it was a little bit chilly, and so I didn't bother with that. And like I said earlier, you could actually get a bus tour that takes you up, and the buses actually go on the glacier, and I guess they let you out to actually walk around in certain places when it's safe to do so. But of course, I didn't. I just had to stop, take some pictures, and have a little bit of a break. And I actually did have a thermos of warm coffee with me, so I had a little shot of coffee to warm up because there was nothing actually open to get anything there. So I didn't have any other choice but to take a little bit of coffee with me, which I'd got at Saskatchewan River Crossing. As I can see, the temperature is all 7 degrees. Time to head her on again. As I carried on, the views kept changing every time you came around a corner. And again, you come up to a little bit of slow traffic once in a while. This is a very long hill. And I guess I know I'm bad. Once again, I passed on a double solid. But you really got to keep your eyes open here because there's not only bear and deer and moose and goats to contend with. There's also the odd idiot that likes to use your side of the road, just like this motorhome decided to take out part of mine. So you really do have to keep your eyes open because all kinds of critters up there. All of them are bigger than you. So you really got to watch. But every time I come around a corner here, the view's changed, and so far, once again, even though it's kind of dark and cloudy, managed to pretty much stay out of the rain. Once in a while, you'd had a shower, and then you'd come out of it, so it really wasn't worth stopping and donning all the rain gear. And just because of a small little shower, and once again, I hit one, and again, you can do some bugs once in a while. But every time you come around a corner, the scenery certainly changes. And once again, we're along this beautiful lake, and every time I'm on a lake, I keep thinking, guys, got to try a little fishing one day. And some really nice corners along here, but this is an absolutely gorgeous ride. You really owe it yourself to take it someday. And here I am heading closer and closer to McBride again, and being the last section of the ride to home. And it has been a fairly long ride from Rocky Mountain House. I think altogether, when I finally parked the bike at home, it was excess of 750 kilometers, I believe. It was a pretty good jog. And here I'm just pulling into McBride again for some fuel for the bike and some fuel for me to warm up, because once again I had run into a big swarm of bugs, as you can tell by all the splats on the lens, and also some rain. So it was time to clean the bugs off the camera, and clean the bugs off the visor and the windshield, and top up the bike with some fuel, and top up me with some coffee and a bite to eat. It had been a fairly long day so far, and it had encountered all kinds of different weather conditions. So it was definitely time for a break. No doubt about that at all. And here I am coming into Prince George after riding on my 208 kilometer long driveway, as I call it, from Prince George to McBride. And just about 15 minutes away from my driveway. And all in all, it was a ride today of well in excess of 700 kilometers. And all kinds of weather conditions and all kinds of different elevations. And the Icefield Parkway is definitely a ride that I recommend to everybody to take. It's an absolutely gorgeous piece of highway. And the ride to Saskatchewan to visit my sister was a great one, and I hope to do it again fairly soon. It was a great ride.